Hi, have you explored Buddhism or have you had much exposure? So they've spent hundreds upon hundreds of years looking at what they call enlightenment, self-realization, true nature, the end of suffering, satori, samadhi, Buddha nature. And then they discern that from what they sometimes call dukkha. And again, there are all these different flavors of Buddhism. I'm just doing a generalization. They call it dukkha, or suffering. And you might have heard of the Four Noble Truths, where they said the nature of this human experience is suffering. And then they give you, the Four Noble Truths is the kind of the path to the cessation of suffering. And then they have the Eightfold Path, and it's a majestic, wonderful, rich exploration. But this dukkha, again, this suffer that they call suffering, is another word for that is this perpetual dissatisfaction. So what do we do with IFS? Like, could effortless IFS and IFS be a simpler way, but that encompasses the subtleties that the Buddhists offer without the spiritualization, with just the simplicity of what is, of a celebration of our system, to see what's arising in us as parts and self. So, as you know, with IFS, it's very simple. It's either self or parts. Self or parts. And in our effortless IFS exploration, we go in deeply into what the nature of self is. And Dick Schwartz has traveled through all of this, the founder of IFS. He wrote a book on this. He wrote a book on self and how we could find it in all the major religion and wisdom traditions and psychological therapies. And that's what we've continued to dive into that in effortless IFS, where we find that the very nature of self is the absence of lack. See if you can touch that with some of the words, some of the descriptions that you know for this self, which is another word for beingness, for isness, or perhaps even this true nature of what we are. The absence of lack. As we start with the classic IFS, where we use the 8 C's as the descriptives. The calm, the compassion, the connectedness, the clarity, the creativity, the courage, the confidence. Notice that there's an absence of lack in that, right? And what is the absence of lack but fulfillment? Or some might even say joy, happiness. So if we know self as this, and if it's just self or parts, and this is where it gets a little more subtle, because this is where the Buddhists say the nature of kind of the personal in the world is dukkha, this suffering, this perpetual dissatisfaction. But let's see in our systems if we can find that little move, that even a part that's like, hey, I won $10 million. Can notice that there's a subtle lack in there. There's a subtle want that the next thing will be, oh, how do I maintain this joy that's here? How do I keep this? How do I handle people who want to be part of this, or family who want, and it's just this sense of wanting that's here. If you can contrast that with, again, the self, the sense of fulfillment that's here, the peace, the calm, the love, the flow, the connectedness. If you can find in parts just the subtlety of this discernment, in effortless IFS, we have 3 views, and this is the first of the 3 of the primary views, which we call it just riding the bike of being. And it's just as we get clear and clear on that subtlety of resting as self, as this fulfillment, as this causeless okayness, and then being able to discern, just like as we learned how to ride a bike. We didn't learn it up here, right? Something just kind of learned. Oh, I'm in balance here. There's balance. And then when it starts to tilt, something would be like, oh, there it is. We're tilting, and it would correct. Same thing with this. Our system becomes more and more able to discern when we start to blend with what we call a part in effortless IFS, in IFS, a part, which is just thought, feeling, and sensation. But these parts that have a sense of a burden, which is a sense of lack or wanting or resistance. And we notice that. That's what the Buddhists call kind of the cause of suffering, which we know in IFS, that in this effortless IFS, suffering is caused from only one thing. It's the blending or identifying with a part. Because if you're not identified with a part, what are you resting as? What are you identified as? This beingness, the ever-present sky. So this has been kind of a roundabout. This is the first time I've done a video on this, and I'll do some follow-ups that'll hopefully be clearer as I'm starting to play with this. Is just to include the richness of the Buddhist path, and the aspiration in effortless IFS is that it meets us. It translates into where you all, whatever your understanding is, whatever model you're using, if it's Christianity, if it's Buddhism, if it's a secular path, if it's a non-dual path, if it's a Native American celebrating the earth, knowing the earth, if it's a Gaia path, if it's a pagan, whatever it is, to see if we can translate it into self in parts. And the Buddhists, theirs is so rich with all the terms to play with, and to see if we can find it all in that simplicity. Because that's all they're doing with the Eightfold and the Four Noble Truths. It's just that clarity of what our nature is. And as we learn like riding the bike, learn our balance here, and then we get more and more subtle to be able to discern self from parts. To be able to discern these parts that have a sense of want, which go it's either into the future or a sense of regret into the past, or sometimes the Buddhists call it desire and aversion. To be able to feel that, and we kind of simplify it sometime in effortless IFS. There's a sense of lack or wanting. You can feel that versus this sense of this causeless okayness, the peace, the fulfillment, the absence of lack. How's that? And for some of us, it's like, whoa, Sid, that was so conceptual. That was so much. Just forget it all. Forget it, because what we're interested in is just whatever resonated for you. There's nothing to understand. We're just playing together as we're getting to know your system, your parts in yourself. There's no place to go, nothing that needs to be done. It's like just riding the bike. We're just playing. And lots of free Zooms, come play with us anytime, and we just practice this together in a kind of a playful, celebratory way. We try to make it like as a kid, where we were learning how to ride a bike, to learn a sport. Remember, it was just fun. We just played with friends, and that's what we do. And I also love feedback, comments on YouTube. Join us at the IFS Non-Dual Community on Facebook, or go to the IFS, effortlessifs.com, and send me a message with what you think. And if it's like, Sid, you are so confused, you got Buddhism way wrong. Oh, please, let's continue to explore it. I'll make a new one tomorrow, and with like, I've been corrected. John and Samantha wrote me, and they said, Sid, you know, and then we'll keep playing together. I hope this is helpful. It's really interesting for me to explore, and it's a treat to be with you. Bye.